Okay, this is gonna just be one of those ones where we see what comes up and we see what comes out as it does. I've been thinking a lot recently about those kinds of situations that you have with people where you feel something and you feel like that thing's really prominent for you, and because of the closeness that you might have between you, you want to be able to share it, or you want to be able to just move that out into the environment. And to be honest, you just want to be able to be authentic with how it is that you feel, whether it's by yourself or whether it's with other people. And for whatever reason, there's like a blockage, right? Like you can sense that if you said the thing that you really wanted to say to that person, or even if you were just by yourself, but you sort of admitted what it was that you were really feeling to yourself, it's almost like there's some blockage there, or there's something that can get in the way of you being able to contact yourself. It's like there's a barrier and something comes up that feels as though it's like a blockage for you being able to feel what it is that you really want to feel, or for you to be able to be what it is that you really want to be in that situation. Because you want to be, so what I notice in myself, I just want to be whole. I just want to have this. And then sometimes I'll just notice how something comes up, or when I'm with someone, or again, when I'm by myself, that it's like, this is just not enough, because there's something that there's just like an intense fear, or there's like a guilt about feeling a certain kind of way, or like sometimes maybe something will come up and you just don't want to deal with it. You just feel like you almost can't be bothered, and you just want it to go away, and you just want to feel safe, and you just want to feel okay. For me, like, for a really, really long time, the way that I would deal with that and the way that I would handle this is I would just eat tons and tons of food. I would go on these like really intense binges. And as soon as feelings would get too intense, I just noticed like there's no way I'm going to be able to go into this. That's how it felt. It felt like I don't even know what I thought would happen. Like I've been kind of playing with that recently, more like when things get really intense, I don't really even know what it is that I'm afraid that would happen, or what I feel like would happen. But I can just tell that like whatever it is, it feels so scary, it feels so terrifying, that that's what I would do for years. Like for like 6 years straight, I just drowned myself in food. And it was interesting, I think, because from the outside, like I've always been in pretty good shape. I work out a lot, and I always like, I guess I had like a form of bulimia, where like I would never make myself vomit, but I would just sort of like not eat the next day, or just have something really small. And it was like I was always oscillating between this feeling of like gross indulgence, and then like this kind of purity of like sort of purging that all away. And then before that, and during that, some of the times I used to just smoke pot and drink, even though I don't really even like the feelings of drinking. I would just smoke and drink in order to kind of fade out and play World of Warcraft, or just watch movies all night, lay in bed, watch movies, have a pornathon. Or other times I've just noticed that I'll be like sort of chasing girls. I'll be out like meeting lots of different girls and wanting that to work, and then getting stressed when they don't message me back, if they don't. And then they will message me back, and I will have dates with them, and I will have experiences, and it never even feels like enough. And I guess just recently I've just taken a bit of time to consider, instead of just jumping on to the next thing and sort of figuring it all out, I've just taken some time recently just to actually sense into like what that is and like where that's really coming from. And what it seems like to me is that there's just these really intense feelings that we can experience sometimes, and they feel like if we go there, it's like we're going to die. Or like something awful is going to happen, and we might not even know what it is that we feel like is going to happen. But it's like if we go to that place, if we let this feeling all the way through and we feel that in our body and in our experience right now, it's like something awful will happen. And I guess recently it's been an interesting period because I just have got to the point, this has been like a slow, gradual thing over the last few years. I've just got to the point recently where it's like, I know I can't run away from anything. Like, I know there's literally no escape. I mean, yeah, sure, I guess I could push the defense mechanisms harder. I could maybe, I've been sober for years now, but I could go back to substances, or I could try to binge. I've tried, like, sometimes I'll have like not really a binge anymore, to be honest, but more like I'll overeat sometimes. Or I'll find myself getting really attached to a person and I'll just kind of like be in like the grip of just being in that experience with them. But then I just notice it's like that saying, wherever you go, there you are. And you always kind of just have to come back to the truth eventually. So recently I've just been sitting in that feeling that it feels like I'm not allowed to have. Or if I'm with someone else, I've just been being honest about what it is that's really coming up, and just sitting with that sense of not being allowed to feel this or not being safe to express this. It's been really revealing. I think one thing I see is I notice how even from like a really young age, certain things have come up, and it's like just because of my family environment and whatnot, it's like I've not been allowed to feel the things that I've been feeling because other people would be so angry or other people would be so stressed. And it's like if you express your feelings, it's almost like you get a sense of like, oh, you're not, it's like, you know, it's expressed whether indirectly or quite directly, you don't have any reason to feel that way, get in line. And it's like you kind of learn in a way to push things down instead of really being able to say an experience where you honestly do. And it's the same, I think, in a lot of our social relationships and even like romantic relationships. I think that it's like, because we operate under this illusion that we have like we're fully responsible for ourselves and we can control exactly what we think and exactly what we feel, as if we're like the orbit of the whole universe. And then I think when you see through that and you realize how daft that is, and that you can't really control what's being felt or that's being experienced, and you don't want to either. Because, like, I don't feel like we come here to be able to just control everything like megalomaniacs and just fit everything into these little brackets. But then these things will come up and you'll just notice how, like, sometimes you can just tell, and then other times you learn through experience. Like, you might even be really close to someone and you might say what it is that you think or feel, and you might notice it ends in, like, massive conflict. Or it ends in a lot of discomfort. Or you're being judged. And what often you notice if you're going through this process of unearthing a lot of these really authentic feelings in yourself is you notice how sometimes when that comes up with other people, you're at that moment, what you actually are is you're the conduit for their projections, because they haven't dealt with that stuff in themselves. So when they're projecting anger at you, you realize that it's conflicting, because at one level you couldn't possibly blame them because you know that you're going through the same thing and you know how they're lost just like you're lost. And that projection is actually something that comes from something that's trying to be protective inside. It's some deep protector, like some wound that's being protected that's really deep down. And you feel like, how could I be angry? How could I be frustrated at this person for expressing that right now? But then on another level, you do feel pissed because you feel like, this is ridiculous. I'm not even trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to tell you what I honestly think. I'm even telling you that that's the case. I'm trying to explain it, and you just feel like your words go in one ear and out the other. And I think again, it can be this exact same thing with ourselves. It's like, we know in a way that the voice in the head that says, if you feel this, you're going to die. Or if you feel this, you're like it, whatever your worst fear is, I think that's often what the voice says when you go near the feelings that you're really afraid to go near. I think that's the thing that voice inside of the head, I say it's inside of the head, who knows it's inside of the head. There's an image in the mind of a head, and then there's like an image of a voice and then a person. But then that disappears and there's just nothing. So like, who knows if it's inside of the head? Maybe the head is inside of whatever this is. But anyway, yeah, there's this voice, and the voice says like, if you feel this, you're going to die. Or if you feel this, again, whatever the worst fear is, like for me, sometimes it's like, there's a sense of like, I'll just be here in the day, and I know I could be doing other stuff to be productive. But then I also just know that right now there's this feeling that wants to be felt. It wouldn't be there if it didn't want to be felt. I don't think there's any mistakes in this. Yeah, no mistakes. I've just noticed that feeling is there. And there can be all this judgment and just meanness and criticism and just like this really harsh sense of like, you know, you're not allowed to go here, you're not allowed to feel this. And just recently I've just stopped listening to it so much. Like, it's not like I've tried to beat that voice, because I don't think I'd ever win. But instead, it's like I've just noticed that that's what it is. Like, it is actually just a voice. And it is actually some part of something, some part of a self that's trying to protect itself and doesn't want to go there because probably a long time ago it decided that it would never feel this again, or that it would never be okay to go here. And that's scary because it makes you realize how much of what you think of as yourself is actually just a compensation for material that you probably haven't felt in 20 years. Or longer, shorter. And it's really interesting because when you actually get close to what those feelings are, it's like all of a sudden you recognize that this is the realest that you've ever fucking felt. It's like the realest that you've ever felt. And it's like, you realize that you've been looking for what you have already in everything else, you know, like in relationships and money and substances, or even like spiritual practice. You realize that you've been looking for what's there all along in anything else and everything else. And then all of a sudden you just feel real, and and it's like it's like a one of those candies, those like gobstopper candies, you know. It's like once you get through the layer, there's like once you get through that hard layer of it, and that that layer is where all that fear is and all that pressure is. And it's years of telling yourself that you're not allowed to feel this. And when that dissolves, there's just this like softness, and there's this sense of like a voice coming from a complete different place. And this voice, it's like, it doesn't necessarily just speak in the way that the head voice does, but it speaks in a way where you just kind of know, like you just kind of know this is what it needs to be. Or you know really directly how you feel, and somehow there's an authenticity to that that's very, it's very direct, and it's very refreshing. It's because it's like it's coming from this place where it's like you just 100% know, like you're in 100%, like you're just clear, you're clean with it, you know? Where before it's like, when you're in that head voice, when you're in that head place, I'm calling it a head place, I don't know what else to say. You're coming from this place where you always feel like you need to get a better position. And you always need to protect yourself and defend yourself and prove yourself. And then when you actually just get to where it is, it's like where you really feel, where you really are, it's just like, whoa, like, I'm so fucking vulnerable underneath it all. And I'm so real and I'm so raw. And it's like the room takes a whole different shape, and the feeling of a body takes a whole different shape. And it's like you look at all your relationships and they take a whole different shape, because you feel like, whoa, like everyone's just like me in that respect, where there's so much that's trying to be protected and defended and held back that how could I even blame anyone? And then you look around you, like, I'm not going to give super specific examples, but there's some situations happening in the world right now, in the political climate and the other climates. And you look at some of these people, again, not naming any names, and you look at them and like, it's interesting because people spend so much time trying to figure these people out. What is his psychology? Is he lying? Is he telling the truth? They don't know how to like do calibrations on the Hawkins scale. You can just calibrate that stuff for yourself, and then that stuff's just funny. But what I mean is, like, you'll see certain people without having to analyze their character, you can just look at them and you can just see right away, like, there's so much, it's all just like outer shell, and you can tell how there's nothing truthful really coming out. And it's not because they're wrong or bad or evil, but it's just because they haven't come to that in themselves yet. And you feel it like as if it's you, because you recognize that to even know another is taking place within you, right? Like, if you think of another one, where does the other one come from? Like, where do you find two other than in one? You know, there is just this ability to recognize that that's directly happening in another, like it's happening with you. And you can tell that in what they're saying, interestingly, it's like there's these contradictions, because part of them needs to defend and needs to prove itself and needs to be the one with power and control. But you can tell that they never really fully get what they want, because you never fully get what you want in that world. You never get what you want when you're constantly fighting for everything. And the only time you maybe do get even close to what you want is when you've got something that you've worked hard for, and then you get it and you realize that that doesn't make you happy anyway. And we have infinite examples for that. Because I think what we actually want is something that we already have. But it's like subtle, isn't it? Like, to want what you've already had. Like, it's terrifying in a way, because to come to this conclusion of like, you can't escape yourself, and this is all there is, and this is what you really want, while simultaneously you've spent your whole life thinking that you're going to get somewhere and that there's going to be some payoff. But I don't know, like recently, for example, just again making this about me, it's kind of a diary entry of a episode, I think. But Recently I've moved into this like new apartment, and it's beautiful. I really like it. And it's just like, I won't go into all the like auspicious circumstances about how it just came about. Like, a lot of people told me, oh, to find an apartment like this in Melbourne for this like, you're kidding. And it just, you know, when you know how things like that work, it's like, you just don't worry. You don't like, you basically take a stance where you just realize that that information doesn't apply to you, and then it just happens. Like, this was literally the first place I looked for, and it came through right away. But you know, moving in here, it's been interesting because there was a part of me that was like, I'm ready to move and I'm enjoying it, but at the same time, just the obviousness the whole time of like, I know this means nothing in terms of fulfillment. I know that's all an illusion, because again, wherever you go, there you are. It's like, okay, you're in a nicer apartment. Okay, you have more money. Okay, you have a different relationship. But it's like, what is it really affording you? And I think it's interesting, right? Because when we're the kinds of people who just teach ourselves to suffer all the time by wanting things, when we actually get what it is that we think we want, it doesn't really do much at all. Like, in the moment it seems like that, but then we're just right on to the next thing. I think these are tales as old as time themselves, but I'm sure you can kind of get what I mean. I guess I'd sort of finish everything up by saying that this isn't meant to be like some how-to teaching or something. Just sharing some presence together, and just, I think if you know, you know. I've actually felt everything that I'm saying here. I've felt this for so long. I think when I started experimenting with more consciousness-oriented stuff and very early exposure to certain substances and things, I think being like 15 or 16 even, it just became so obvious to me that it's like nothing ever brings any satisfaction because everything is right here. But it's funny how, even though you know that at some level deep down, further back, it's funny how you can watch yourself still going through those motions. I think we just need, there's different like degrees to which we need to prove ourselves wrong or prove ourselves right there, depending on how you look at it. I think I just hit mine recently. I think I just got to this point recently. I don't exactly know when. Like, I could list out certain experiences recently that have been illuminating, but I think that there was just this point recently where it's like, there's just nothing to run from, because it's like, you are always just going to be the way that you are. It's all just right here. But there's so many distractions and deterrents from that. And what your friends are saying, what your family says, what the fucking voice upstairs says, what the fear says, what the news is saying. Check out the series I just made on self-intimacy. There's 3 parts. The first one is called Your Inner Voice. Just check that out. Okay, I don't know how long this has been going for. I'm gonna guess it's been going for 23 minutes. That's like my intuitive guess of how long this has been going for, my time sense. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. If you relate or you got value out of this, appreciate you subscribing to the channel as per, liking the video, sharing this to anyone else you feel like might get value out of it. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I hope that you're being... Let's do a bit of a, like, not asking for kind of prayer, but just a prayer of acknowledgement of one another here, if you're still here. And the way I want to acknowledge you today is I want to just acknowledge the honesty within you. I just want to acknowledge the honesty that's within you, that always is there, but that sun that's always shining, but it might be obscured by some clouds right now. It might not be. But I just want to acknowledge that in you and in myself. And again, just cutting out all the bullshit from what other people have to say, or what that judgmental part of us has to say, or parts of us have to say. And I just want to acknowledge that sort of truth that's underneath it all. And yeah. I'm going to cut that off now, but thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I will see you very soon.